Hey guys, welcome to our mobile mouse video on SUMIFS. This is basically a slight extension on the previous video, XL116 using SUMIF, this being SUMIFS, this video. So the basic idea here in this video is we want to show you how using SUMIFS you could actually specify multiple sets of criteria. In this case, we're going to look to sum all values for each individual person here between certain date ranges, and of course those date ranges will be adjustable. Alright, so what we'll start off with is just to point out that what I've done ahead of time here, just to again make the formula a little bit simpler, is I've specified that cells B4 through N4 are basically a named range known as headings, and cells O1 and O2 respectively have been named start and end. Right. Again, named ranges aren't a requirement for this, but it might just make the form a little bit easier to understand and also reduce the amount of absolute relative references we'll have to create. Right, so let's start off. Going to cell O5, we'll start off by pressing equals, and the formula here is SUMIFS, plural. Right. Now, the sum range basically is the first set of cells that we're looking to add up. So what we're doing here is we're going to start off by selecting from cell B5 over and across to cell N5. Now, incidentally, I could have stopped at column M, but what I'm doing here is I'm going an extra column here. The reason simply being, at some stage we might want to add more data into the matrix, and by including an extra column, that will allow us to adjust the add in more data very simply and easily, and the forms of course will pick up that new data. But of course we'll demonstrate that in a little bit. So first thing we're going to need to do here though is, having highlighted or selected from B5 through N5, just clicking into the reference of B5 and pressing F4 once, twice, 3 times, we're basically absoluting the reference, a mixed cell reference here, to fixate the formula on column B, never move away from B, and we're not locking it on row 5 because we'll be copying the formula down. Let's click onto the N5 portion and we'll do the same thing again. We will press F4 1, 2, 3 times, once again locking the formula on column N and basically not locking row 5. In this case we probably wouldn't need to do that in either of these two absolute references because we wouldn't be copying the formula across. But if we were copying it either left or right, we'd keep them fixated on columns B and N respectively. Now, having mentioned that, right, so those are the cells to sum. The next thing we can do is, you notice it's sum range. We're going to go comma to get into criteria range 1. And this is where we're basically again going to specify our heading cells. Now again, I could go as far as column M, but we're extending this a little bit further, that if we do add more data into the mix, we can pick up that data straight away. So that's the criteria range 1. The next argument, pressing comma, is criteria 1. So basically what we need to say, right, if something is greater than or equals to, and we want to specify this starting date cell. Now I'm going to point out in a little while that initially this formula is not going to work, and we'll have to make a little amendment to it, and we'll point out why in just a moment. So we're saying if the starting date along the headings here is greater than or equals to the currently specified start cell. Right. Now basically that is criteria 1. We're then going to go comma, and we now need to specify criteria 2. Now the criteria 2 here will be, again, from cell B4 through to N4. With that criteria range 2 specified, we go comma, and the second set of criteria is the value must be, or the date must be less than the ending date that we specified. So this will be a case of less than or equals to, and again we'll click on the end cell, in this case cell O2. Now, as I just briefly mentioned a second ago, that this is not actually going to work. So I'm going to close the brackets here. I'm going to try and press enter to the formula, and as mentioned, it spits up an error. So we'll click OK, and let's explain why. Now, the simple reason being that with your SUMIF and SUMIFS count and COUNTIFS functions and your averageifs functions, basically these being logical arguments in their own right, logical formulas in their own right, don't actually like the usage of operators such as greater than or equals to. So what we need to do here is, to allow this to work in Excel, we simply have to take our first set of arguments here, I beg your pardon, our first operator of greater than or equals to, and we need to enclose them in quotations, kind of like you would do if you were referring to text. But what you're also going to need to do here is you need to stitch on to this the start value. And the way we join things together in Excel is to use an ampersand symbol. Right, so we did exactly the same thing for the ending values, where we'll go for the greater than portion or less than portion, we'll go quotations. After the equals, we've got quotations, and then we'll stitch that to the end cell value. So now if we press Control Enter on this, you'll notice how this now works. So the starting being the 6th of July, the ending being the 12th of July, you'll notice that the values in that range add up to 200. So if we were to, let's say, adjust the ending range to, let's say, the 18th of July, you'll notice how that now adjusts the total to 300, because it's now only adding up from that range to there. So if we just take the starting and set that to, say, the 9th of July, the value would be 200, because it's only adding up that range over there. So simply to finish this off, we'll copy the formula down the list, and you'll notice how for the given date range is currently specified, it tallies up those totals. Right, so let's set the starting date to the first date that's in this list, the 6th, and let's set the ending date to the 8th of August, which is the last date along those headings, and now you've got the full total for each row. So here's the great thing. If we were to insert another column, and let's say we were now going to add in another bit of data over here. So we just created a pattern. Let's say that this was a value of 50, and let's make this one be 5. So what would happen here is if we adjusted our ending range to now accommodate the 11th of August, you'll notice how the totals adjust accordingly. So guys, hopefully that made sense. Hope you got something out of the video. This is just one of many uses or potential usages for SUMIFS, and yeah, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we look forward to hearing from you sometime in the near future. Thanks for your time. Cheers.